Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is fueled by Deechworks. You can visit them at deechworks.com for all your fuel system needs. Deechworks is in the business of fueling your passion. If you want to support the podcast, please download, share, review, and rate 5 stars only on your favorite podcast platform. Now that the business is out of the way, I'm your host, John Turk, and we are talking Aero. Yes, we're talking Aero again. I don't really know that much other than what I learned from AJ. Thank you, AJ, for coming on, because I did learn a lot, but we're going to have more information. Today's guest was recommended by Bill from Garage Heroes in Training. Thank you, Bill. If you don't like this podcast, blame him, not me. GarageHeroesInTraining@gmail.com. My guest is someone I would describe as an extreme hobbyist. Like the most of us, he's a thinker. He's got a sound Aero philosophy, and he backs it all up with real data. Mario from OctumsRacers.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Con. Good to be here.
You and I have talked now. Well, we talked for almost an hour, probably accidentally, before we are going to sit down to record a couple days ago. So I don't know. I think you and I could probably talk for hours and hours. I don't think we need to go that long, but I would like to get some points across. And I know you have some passions about it. What's your racing-ish background, and when did you decide, how did you decide to go down this aerodynamics rabbit hole as sort of a privateer hobbyist? How did that happen?
It happened because I think it was on my first or maybe second. I don't think I've done more than a couple of HBDs at that point in my life, early on in my life, this is like a dozen years ago. And I did a DE at Sears Point, Sonoma, and there was this shittiest car there, like this station wagon, like a Woody, right? And they were packing it up and they were going to go racing. And I think it was probably Altamont or something. It was an early Lemons race. And they told me about this 24 hours of Lemons, and I thought it was so clever.
Right.
It's punny, 24 hours of Lemons. And I was like, what the hell is this? They're going to race that piece of shit. I mean, it was literally held together with, like, good intentions.
As most lemon cars are.
The next, yeah, and bad ideas. It's like a combination. So about 6 months later, I had convinced my brother and one of his grad students and some other saps to like invest in a car and do this ourselves. We bought a Toyota MR2 and for $500, and we turned it into a Lemons racer. And at the time I was really into building boats. And so we built a boat around it, and our theme was Noah's Ark. So we raced and we stuffed it full of like animals, and there was a fish on the back, and there were all sorts of other like sort of arky kind of, memorabilia all over the car. A lot of it did actually remain. But anyway, we raced it like that, and you'd think that was terrible for aerodynamics. It must have been. It must have created lift. Like there were times when we couldn't even see over the bow of the boat. Like one of our guys who was like the most senior person on the team, he actually went 4 off in a full course yellow because he couldn't see the turn. So that car was terrible, and it was so much fun. And after that, like, I don't know, like that was maybe a dozen years ago, and we were racing Lemons. We eventually got into racing, things like Champ Car, Lucky Dog. But that car, we kept spinning bearings. We got rid of it. We got a Miata, and then I don't know what it was. We had a few Miatas in the family and stuff, but so I like them. And then I was just doing a lot of research and realized that the information was just too spread out, too hard to find. There was good stuff on Miata Turbo. There was good stuff being done by other people disparately. And there was huge gaps in the knowledge. And I just wanted to know, well, what's a fastback worth? Like, is it worth doing a fastback? So I was going to make a fastback and test it. And I just got I met a guy, Jeremiah Wennermark, who is of Man Machine Consulting. And he put, a whole bunch of computers on my car. We tested it at Watkins Glen, and that just was snowballed into what is now like a big hobby of mine. I'm I would say extreme hobbyist, or like in programming and software, that you might call somebody like a citizen developer. They're like copying and pasting code. They're using other people's ideas. And I kind of feel like that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'm not a true aerodynamicist. I don't have a degree in anything. I have a degree in archaeology, right? This is not useful. But I'm a doer. I like to get shit done. I've got some ideas, and I'll just try that stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, it's been a long journey to this point, but it just sort of keeps building momentum. Like, I keep getting more ideas. I keep wanting to do new stuff, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. It's we all take certain hobbies, certain passions. We find them somewhere in life at some point in life, and we start trying to perfect it. I think you're farther along the hobbyist line than you think you are, but and you're definitely not cutting and pasting.
I also have more hobbies than you can possibly imagine. This is just like one of.
Okay, let's compare, because my wife swears I have all the craziest hobbies. So I brew beer.
Yeah, well, for a long time.
Do you brew beer?
Oh, no, but I make hop water.
Okay, all right.
Which is extracts of hops, and then I add to water, and I can often like discern, like if you gave me a little bit of hops, I'd know what it was.
Okay, yeah. So my wife and I did beer judging, and we can drink a beer,
shit.
and I can tell you the hops that were used in it for sure. So.
Oh my God, I've got to send you some,
okay.
Like some small bottles of my hops extract. I was for many years super into spearfishing.
Oh wow, okay.
Spearfishing. So yeah, in fact, I'm going in May down to Baja. Traditional archery. I do a lot of deer hunting with a longbow. Things like that. And of course, every one of these things I have to get to the geekiest level of spreadsheets and micrometers. Right.
I'm with you.
Reloading ammunition. Good Lord. Yeah.
My press for my reloading is right here.
Oh, what do you have?
I have Franklin Armory. Just a single stage.
All right. On. Yeah, that's what I had, a single stage. I did a lot of, but once you get into that stuff, you're playing with the jump to the lands, you're playing with the primers, you're playing with the seat pressures, all that stuff, and everything has a small amount of difference, and you're trying to optimize.
Correct.
It's similar. It's pretty darn similar. Yeah. Well, good to meet you that way, dude.
Yeah. When we talked earlier, I thought we were pretty close in how we approach things. Like I didn't go down this aerodynamic rabbit hole, but I knew my car had problems, so I needed to start researching, right? And I needed to talk to the right kind of people to get it where it needed to be. So Bill said I should talk to you. So I reached out, and you were happy to come on. So I really appreciate that.
Sure.
So for everyone, the website where he has blog posts and other articles that he's written is Occam's Racer, not Razor, occamsracer.com. Feel free to go sign up for his email stuff, because I've now binged your entire website. So all I have to do is wait for the next email that tells me there was an update, and I read it. So I appreciate that.
Nice. It's actually Racers with an S. I tried to get Racer.
It's
Racer.
Racers. Yeah.
And someone was, sitting on that. So I got Occam's Racers.
Okay, that's fine.
But that's fine.
Add an S
Sometimes
at the end.
I'm an identical twin, so there's two of us. He writes a blog at You Suck at Racing.
Oh, nice. Nice. I'll have to check that one out.
He started before I did. Yeah, it's a good one. It's mostly on driving technique and not at all on aero. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll have to have your twin on. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good driving coach, good sim racer, generally faster than I am. So yeah. Good
all right. So your last blog post was thinking in aerodynamic coefficients. So can you talk us through that a little bit? You don't have to go verbatim, but you have a lot of high level topics that really drew me in. So,
Well, I use a tool called Optimum Lap, which is a simulator. So you could say, I want to throw a wing on my car or a splitter or whatever, and then you change a couple of values and push a button, and it tells you what your lap time was. But you have to know the aerodynamic coefficients of those things. Oftentimes, you'll see somebody talk about a wing in terms of how many pounds of downforce it made. Or you might see someone talk about a 15-to-1 lift drag ratio or things like that. And those are all kind of hard to, you can't plug them into this tool, right? You really have to plug in the coefficient of drag and the coefficient of lift. I mean, if you know those two things and the frontal area of the vehicle, you can pretty much calculate how fast it's going to go, given a certain tire, et cetera. But it's to me, it's like sort of fundamental, but it's what I started with. And I do understand that not everybody is familiar with that. So I said, I was talking to a buddy and he was like, I've got to wrap my head around coefficients. And I said, okay, let me write an article on that. And so it's really like, I kind of think of, almost everyone knows coefficient of drag. Like if I were to ask you, Con, what's the coefficient of drag of, you don't even know. I'm going to say a Jeep. What are you going to guess?
Pretty high. Whatever the scale is, it's pretty high, right? It's a square.
Yeah, and if I said, what's a Tesla, what would you say?
Fairly low because they want to be super efficient. So.
Yeah, but like throw a number on the Tesla. Just pull
like
one out of there.
23.
Yeah, so you're like probably right within 10%, right? It's like 25 or something, right? And what would you say like a Honda Fit is?
They're pretty slippery, but they're tall. So probably like a 29, 30.
A little higher, but in any case, you have some, it's like probably in the mid-30s, but you have an idea of what drag numbers are because manufacturers publish drag numbers all the time, unless they're embarrassed about it. Like they don't tell you that, this big square boxy SUV is a 0.52, but they will absolutely, bang it into your head that the new Corvette is a 0.29 or whatever. So people generally have an idea of the coefficient of drag, but if you want to go fast around a racetrack, it's the coefficient of lift that matters, not the coefficient of drag. So as cars are sort of streamlined shapes. They have longer roofs, shorter bottoms, and so they have a low pressure zone above, and it sucks them upwards. It creates lift, just like an airplane wing is shaped. It's flat on the bottom, flatter on the bottom, and sort of curved on the top, and so cars lift at speed. Almost every production car is going to lift at speed, and that coefficient of lift is somewhere maybe like around 0.15 average. Okay. Race cars are going to have a negative coefficient of lift or downforce. And so that while nobody talks about it, this is the most important thing is what is your coefficient of lift, negative lift. To me is like the measure of a car. They're all going to have drag to a certain extent. And as you get faster and faster cars, they're better at that. But if you're not making significant downforce, you're not going very fast. So this article that I wrote first just talks about generally, coefficients of drags, different levels of that, and then it goes into coefficients of lift. And I would say street cars are all sort of in that 0.15 range. I would say sports cars, sporty sedans and stuff kind of approach a CL of 0, but not quite. To actually get 0 lift, you need to kick air upwards, right? Because it's coming over the arch of the roof. And so it needs some kind of spoiler or wing. The front will usually make downforce by the shape of it, being sort of wedge shaped, but you need to kick some air up. So if you look at a true sports car, like any kind of Porsche, Ferrari, whatever, they're going to be around 0 lift. And what that means is it doesn't, as you go faster and faster, the car stays the same. It doesn't lift off the ground. It doesn't push into the ground. It has very balanced traction. And as you go more and more exotic and more supercar from Lotus to Lamborghini or whatever, you might approach a coefficient of lift of, say, negative 3. And that's really kind of pushing the car to that. So I would say that's sort of the first category, street cars. Then you have sort of sport car, which is, let's say, average 0.15. Then you have sort of sports car, which is hopefully around 0. And then you have kind of true supercars and exotics, and those are up to negative 0.3.
Okay.
I'm not talking about the Aston Martin Valkyrie, but things that are normally shaped. And then after negative 0.3, you really get into race cars. I don't think that anything above that negative 0.3 is sort of a spec car or a very lightly aeroed car, and anything under that is becoming a race car. For example, a NASCAR stock car. It's going to have a negative coefficient of lift in the negative 0.4 range, as are just about everything with a wing or a spoiler. That's a race car. So, and at the far end, you've got things that have a negative coefficient of lift of like -3, -3.5, right? So now that we've kind of covered just the drag and the lift, I just want to divide one by the other. And that tells you how efficient the vehicle is. If you take the lift, which we said was some like -3, and divide it by the drag, which is say -0.3, you get this lift drag ratio. And that we also call aerodynamic efficiency. And it's probably it's a really good benchmark of how fast a car is around a racetrack. If I just was talking to some people who knew coefficients and I said, well, what's your lift drag ratio? And they were like, yeah, mine's right around 2 to 1, -2 to 1, right? Wow, that's pretty good, and someone else says, yeah, I've got -3 to 1. I'm like, wow, they know what they're doing. That's a level that I've never achieved. Le Mans prototypes cars are limited to -4 to 1. They could achieve more than that, but based on the rules and such, they're only allowed -4 to 1. And that's at a level nobody's going to reach, right? Without massive computers, wind tunnels, et cetera. And I would say most people going to track days and doing regular kind of racing are kind of at -1 to 1. So that kind of gives you an idea of coefficients and how to look at a car and be like, oh, yeah. Looking at your Honda Challenge car, it's somewhere in that -1 to 1 range. We'd like to see it get it closer to, -1.5 or -2.
Right.
Probably, yeah. So that's how I think of coefficients. Anything jump out at you?
No, not yet. You did talk a little bit about efficiencies. I know they're not your favorite, and you did mention rules, and I know you have some opinions on those. I don't know when you want to get into that.
Oh, well, let's talk. Yeah. Well, no, aero efficiency is what I was just talking about. So that's the lift drag ratio. So we often see this quoted for example, wings, right? A wing has a 15 to 1 lift drag ratio.
Yeah, Johnny.
Canards. Yeah, Johnny. Canards have a 3 to 1 lift drag ratio, often quoted as Macbeth would quote that as 3 to 1. Spoilers range from 4 to 1 to 2 to 1. So that's the same thing. That's aerodynamic efficiency. But if you take that wing and put it on a car, the wing is very small and streamlined. And let's say it does have a 15 to 1 ratio, and you put it on the car, it's insignificant to the car. The drag goes up by 0.03, maybe. Okay, so you have a car that's at 38 drag with the windows open, it goes to 41, right? And the downforce maybe kicks up by 50 points. You might get -0.5 coefficient of lift out of that wing or more, right? If you put it at the lowest angle, which is the most efficient for that wing, the car is not going to go much faster. The aerodynamic efficiency doesn't increase that much of the vehicle. Even though the wing is the most efficient, the vehicle itself doesn't get that much more efficient with the wing at a low angle. If you crank that wing to where it's just about stalling, right, it's going to make a lot more downforce. And now the whole vehicle is more efficient. The vehicle's huge. It has a big frontal area. It has a lot of drag. And so it needs a lot of downforce. I could show you this in numbers. It's kind of hard to talk about. But I will just say that. So when people buy a wing, by its aerodynamic efficiency, they're just listening to marketing. They should buy the wing based on the aerodynamic efficiency at a high level of attack on their car. And I understand that that's not easy to do. But that's all that matters is what's your aerodynamic efficiency of the entire vehicle, not of the part that you stuck on your car.
Okay. So just to make sure we get everything correct, we're taking a second stab at the vehicle efficiency and wing efficiency. So Mario, do you want to take this away?
Yeah, thanks, Con. I had my foot in my mouth when I was trying to explain this before, but so I ran some numbers, which is the only way to really explain this. And what I did was I built Con's car in Optimum Lap, and then I used the 9 Lives Racing CFD from their wing to basically put a wing on his car at 0 degrees, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and 10 degrees with a gurney flap to sort of what kind of numbers are we going to get? What kind of lap times are we going to get? So at 0 degrees, the coefficient of drag is 0.365.
Okay, hold on.
The coefficient of lift.
So before we get too deep, the tool you're using, do you want to explain that a little bit? And then
Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
It's a lap time. It's a kind of a race simulator. I wouldn't call it a lap time predictor because there's certain things it can't do, and it can't factor in elevation and camber on the track. You have to know kind of fudge values for the grip of a track. Like if you use Mid-Ohio, you might have to reduce it. Or if you have Mid-Ohio recent data, you might have to increase it, because it's repaved, things like that. And it won't know those things.
Right.
But you can, for example, do what we're going to do, which is put a wing on a car if you have these values, and then change the drag and lift, just the drag and lift, and see what happens to lap times, to pounds of downforce, pounds of drag, those kinds of calculations. Even the top speed of the car or the cornering speed in each corner.
Okay, and you're going to talk about degrees of wing angle, which I learned, and I don't know whether we're editing it out or not, so I want to cover it a little bit, but it's not in relation to the ground or the plane of level, but the airflow coming off the car, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we do cover that later. But on my Miata, it's about -5 degrees. On your car, it might be more like -7 or -8 degrees. So even if the wing is flat, it's experiencing a +7 degrees angle.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this one, I'm going to say we're going to put the wing on your car at 0 degrees, which means actually it's probably set negative. And so it has a coefficient of drag of 365 and a coefficient of lift of 0.2. So what's important about that is the aerodynamic efficiency of the car, which is just divide the lift by the drag, and you get 0.55. And that's a good indication of how the performance of a car. If you were just to take two cars and just looked at the lift drag ratios of each car, one was 0.55 and one is 0.95, well, the one with 0.95 is going to be faster. Mm-hmm. So if we take the 5 degree wing and put it on your car, it adds a little bit more drag. Your drag went from 365 to 370, but your downforce went from 0.2 to 0.315, and consequently your lift drag ratio went from 0.55 to 0.85. That's a good chunk. Mm-hmm. So a 5 degree wing angle results in 0.27 seconds faster lap time at summit point.
Okay.
Quarter of a second.
I mean,
and so let's say, we'll take anything.
I'll take anything.
Right. I mean, give me half a second, I'll give you like a ball. Right. So then if we put the 10 degree on, same thing happens. It adds more drag, but it also adds more downforce. And the end result is a lift drag ratio of 0.95. We're going higher. And now let's throw a gurney flap on there. And again, both drag and downforce go up, but you get a lift drag ratio of 1.07. And, if you were listening before, we were talking about the article that I wrote on coefficients. You really kind of like, as a sort of HPDE and track person, you want to kind of reach that threshold of 1-to-1, and we just did, right? So by going from a 0 degree wing to a 10 degree wing with gurney flap, we went from a 0.55 lift drag ratio to a 1.07, which is a 195% improvement in lift drag ratio and a 0.4 second per lap faster. So, I mean, that's how I wanted to explain that you don't really want to set your wing to the most efficient. And that's also why you don't want to choose a wing that's the most efficient, because it's the same thing. If you say, I'm going to choose the most efficient wing, that's like saying, I'm going to run my wing at 0 degrees. It's much, much more important to choose the wing that gives the car the best lift drag ratio. To choose a wing and set it at an angle such that it gives the car the best lift drag ratio.
Okay. And then, so for me, having a front end that's splitter, I don't know. I don't have much of a splitter. It's 1.5 inch lip. It's 22 inches long overall. I know the bottom does most of the work, but we have that flat splitter rule. So it's like, how do I balance that? Because I don't want to aero induce push. Is that plausible?
Yeah. Well, we talk about it later in a second, okay, if we don't delete that part, which is that you're already running more than 5 degrees. I mean, you're probably running 7 degrees right now.
Okay.
So you're probably in a good range and already. And there's probably other things to fix, like the enormous size of your window gaps or your toe in and toe out. I mean, that's probably where your speed is. It's probably not in the wing, because the wing itself, from 0 degrees, it was 0.365 drag.
Mm-hmm.
At 5 degrees, it was 0.370. I mean, that's nothing, right?
Okay.
At 10 degrees, it was 0.380. We're not adding a lot of drag. The wing doesn't add a lot of drag. It's very efficient.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's worth noting because, well, I don't know if I can close my windows. I can't actually. I went deep into the rule book, and while my class rules say so, the NASA CCR says no.
Yeah, I'd be looking at some big NASCAR size style window nets.
Oh, the big thick ones?
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, they're just like pinholes that you can see through. It's mostly fabric.
Okay.
Those guys will close off most of the window.
Oh, should I do the what? Who was the one running around? Was it like Larson or somebody with the glove? So I can just put that in the window too while I'm driving around.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So
anything like that.
Okay. Well, window nets are cheap, and if it's going to help, like, why not? Right.
Yeah, I can't think of a car that has bigger windows than you've got, like bigger holes in the side of the car.
Oh yeah, they're pretty big. So,
quick story. My brother's Yaris, so we raced that thing, and we used to do, let's just say, 98 miles an hour at Thunderhill down the front straight, and then he took out the quarter windows, which is essentially turning the Yaris. He basically removed the mirrors, which are attached to this big quarter window kind of frame thing up there, and he took that off, and the car lost like 5 miles an hour.
Oh wow!
Because of and when I look at your car, it looks like the Yaris with the windows removed, with the mirrors removed, because there's that whole triangle in front that's just, and especially when your car is in yaw, if you've got any kind of angle, you're just shoving air into your car.
Yeah. Well,
but let's get back to the other part.
Okay.
Maybe we cut this off and get back
fine.
up.
Banter's good.
Cool. Okay.
So are we good?
Yeah. I think that'll do it.
Now back to your regularly recorded podcast.
Well, 0 is not 0. You're saying it's 0 flat to the ground?
Yes.
0 horizontal. So the air comes down the roof at an angle and hits the wing at an angle. Your wing's probably at 5 degrees.
Really?
You'd have to set it negative. Oh, yeah. So what I did is I put a clear grid on the side of my car where my wing is, and I put a metal rod through it and little cardboard telltales and measured the angle of the air as it comes across the back of the car. And at roof height, at pretty far back towards the trunk, the angle is about 5 degrees in the middle of the wing, in the middle of the roof, and 0 degrees at the outsides. As I move that wing closer and closer to the trunk, the angle increases. And as I move the wing forward, the angle increases. So it's never flat. The air does not move flat across the roof.
So, yeah. Okay. We'll use my car as an example, because my wing is set as far back on my trunk as possible, and it's as low as it's possible.
Okay. So it's even more of an angle.
So it's more, so
if you raised your wing, how high is it?
I can't. It's the lowest setting on the 9 Lives wing. I can jack it up like 4 inches, I think.
Do it. Okay, so a couple of things are going on there. Yeah, I don't think you're so close to the boot lid that you're going to get like suction mirroring or anything, but you are probably getting more turbulent air closer, and you're also probably experiencing a higher angle of attack because the air straightens out above the roof. Have you ever looked at like wind tunnels with streamlines where they show the little lines going over the top of the roof? And you can see that the ones that are the highest are the straightest. And as they come towards the back window and they sort of attach to the back window in the trunk, they get lower and lower and lower and more angle. So you are not running a 0 degree wing. If you're at the lowest, it's probably 8 or 9 degrees. You might even, who knows what it's doing. Like, I have this, you probably could use a tool like I've got, which, I just put a GoPro on my side of the car and take a video as I drive down the road, and you can see where the cardboard telltales reside, and they're at negative 5 degrees. So if I put my wing at 0 and the wing comes off it at negative 5, is hitting it at negative 5, it's an angle of incidence of 5 degrees. Yeah, for sure. You absolutely. I was thinking we were going to talk about the front of your car, but You fucked up the back of your car.
That's easy. It's like
So
4 bolts. I can fix that.
So, I mean, back as far as you want is a good
Okay.
idea, typically. But usually overlapping the boot lid by about 25%. So a 9 wing is what, 9.1, 9.2 inches. So, probably 2.5, 2.75 inches should overlap the boot lid with the rest on the other side of it, like towards your bumper. What that does is kind of sets up the right amount of sort of suction and does help extract air from the underbody, even though you're not like a flat underbody. It's helpful to extract air from underneath there and kick that wake up. And by putting the wing at roof height, you're going to get into cleaner air and you're going to have flatter air. So that's the first thing I would do. Roof height and 25% overlap. That may already change things for you.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get 25% overlap. It's like 100% overlap on the boot lid. Just because of the mount.
It would be nice if you could move it forward. Gotcha. I mean, it'd be nice if you could move it forward just a hair, but if you can't, you can't. Okay. Especially as you move it up, it's going to move away just based on its mounts. Yeah, I would definitely try that. So what made you think that you should run it closer to the...
I wanted it out of the air. So I was trying to hide it from the air.
Well, even at roof height, you're not increasing the frontal area of the car. It's still tucked behind the sort of shadow of the canopy. So it doesn't really do that. What you did was just gave it more turbulent air and more angle, unfortunately.
Okay. Easy fix for me.
Yeah. Easy fix. Let's try it and see what happens. You might even need negative angle. I know it sounds crazy, but if you were to put your wing at, say, -2 degrees, the air is still hitting it at 5 degrees. That's still a 3-degree wing.
No,
even though it's pointing upwards.
It makes sense. This is the naivete I had. I was like, okay, 0 means efficient. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to set it to 0, right? Not thinking about setting it to the flow rate of the car or how it would flow off the car. Like that, I was just like, it's going to act on whatever, so.
Right. Do you use a gurney flap on that thing? So that was one of the things I found in the wind tunnel was the 9 Lives wing really definitely responds well. In fact, they all did, to a gurney flap. Like a 1/2-inch gurney flap added 165% downforce. So, obviously a wing making 100 pounds of downforce at some speed will make 165 with a 1/2-inch gurney flap. And they have 3 sizes of gurney flaps. So you can do a heck of a lot of tuning just with the gurney flap. And not even...
Yeah, I'm hesitant to add downforce to the rear because I'm in a front wheel drive car. So I need high speed stability and low speed rotation. So...
Yeah, I mean, we did the same thing with this Toyota Yaris we raced. And when you get that right, where it's pivoting in the slow corners and stuck in the fast corners, it's a magical thing. And if your car is handling like that, you don't want to fuck it up. But it's something to try. Like you might be able to take some wing angle out at this point. If you raise it, like right now for sure, I can't say for sure. Right now it seems like you probably have a draggy situation by having it lower. And you're going to have to run more angle attack to get the same downforce. If you raise it and take some wing angle out, you may get the same downforce and less drag.
Okay. I'll play with it. That's not a big deal. That's easy. Yeah. That side of the car is easy to play with. And AJ's recommendation was like, buy whatever kit you want, bolt it to the car, and sort of just tweak it when you feel like you need to tweak that side of the car, right? But
yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
For most of us, to include me, there's lots of different quick disconnects. I live the open trailer life, so I need to be able to pop my splitters off pretty easily. I'd like to put them on pretty easily because I live pretty close to Summit Point, so I like to roll in Saturday morning and sort of just get ready to go. and not have to jack up the car and put splitters on and all that stuff. So,
Right.
But I mean, Professional Awesome makes quick disconnects. I'm currently running a Racebred quick disconnect. PCI makes quick disconnects. I think even Johnny makes disconnects now. I don't know how quick they are, but he makes mounts. There's plenty of different mounts. For my car and for others, they're not necessarily off the shelf anymore. And so we're exploring the world of front end aerodynamics because, well, one, I know nothing. We just proved I know nothing. So, and I designed the front end all by myself. So,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I looked at pictures of your front end. I looked at it, and we talked about this the other day, and it's something that I've noticed by looking at other people's wind tunnel data, mostly that, which is that you get a great deal of downforce by reducing the size of your radiator intake.
Okay.
If my Miata intake is 26 inches wide or something like that, and so is the sort of smile that the air goes through, that big old radiator hole. It really doesn't need to be that wide. Like, you could take several inches out of that on either side and then create a little angled duct that goes back to the radiator, and it would do two very important things. It would, A, make it smaller, which is less drag, and B, it would increase the cooling efficiency, because as the air enters that smaller duct and expands, it slows down, which makes it easier to go through the radiator. What I was surprised by was the downforce that these people made on that. Like, you can look at stuff from Race Louvers. He's got all those great PDFs on his site. I mean, let's give a big shout out to Al for being awesome. And then the stuff from this wind tunnel test up in Canada for the C5 Corvette, they did the same thing. I think they just sort of blue taped on either side of the radiator inlet and just closed down the sides of the inlet so it's smaller. And they picked up sizable downforce, not just drag reduction. I was like, that really made me pause and think for a minute. And right now I'm designing my own kind of race car, and the front radiator opening is so tiny, I can't believe it. It's 7 inches by 5 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. I was watching something the other day or reading something, and that there was a Porsche Boxster that had a 17%, its inlet, radiator inlet was 17% of the size of the radiator. I mean, I've heard, anecdotally 25 to 33%, but 17% is tiny, and then usually it's the exit duct of your radiator is usually let's say 125% of the intake size. And, again, you actually want to accelerate the air as it comes out of the radiator so that it sort of more matches the speed of the car as it's exiting. So it has this sort of shape to a proper radiator duct. And when I was looking at your car, it does look like your intakes are the full width of the car, of what they are.
They're the full width of the radiator. Now my question is, are you saying I need more louvers in my hood? No,
I'm not. I'm saying close off the radiator.
Front bumper area.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to draw you a picture, because you have an upper and lower inlet, and because there's a bumper beam that's in the middle of those. But so you'd almost have two diverging chambers that, let's say I'm just going to throw a number out, 12 inches wide, and they expand to 16 inches or something, right? As they go in, they need to expand like that. It's going to... I know that it's going to increase your downforce. I mean, I wouldn't have known that until I read these reports. And now I'm like, okay, first of all, you're going to get more front downforce, and it's going to reduce your drag. It's it's a free lunch.
Yeah. So let's go back to this 25 to 33%. I am somewhere with my rough math of the grill, because the upper grill is a weird diamondy triangle piece, right? And then the bottom square inches through the bumper, through the lower grill. I'm somewhere in that 25 to 33% already.
I'm surprised.
So the bottom, well, the size of the the size of the lower radiator grill opening, the actual area that's open is only 4 inches tall. And I have a 20.
Yeah, but it's the full width.
But it's a 29.5 inch tall radiator.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not getting much out of the top. So I was going to block it off. I was going to block the top.
Are you allowed to change those kind of things? And do the rules allow you to change those kinds of things?
I mean,
okay. I mean, this seems to me to be real low hanging fruit, because I'll send you that data, but there's drag reduction and downforce gain for free using the correct size hole and geometry that most people, myself included, have never really taken advantage of.
I'll look at it. I won't. I'll do anything to improve the car.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk the exit side. And that, that's another thing where in Race Louver has just tons of great information. And really, if you're not going to duct the exit of your radiator, and that means like remove your fans, tilt it forward, do all the nonsense that's necessary to create a proper exit duct. Just the more hood vents, the better, apparently. He's got like 500 square inches of hood louver on some of these cars, and they make 40 pounds of downforce. And another one with less will make 11 pounds. So to me, that's a big deal. Like all those little things add up. So
yeah, I have no room for ducting, because if you look into my ductwork, the intake manifold is right there. Like there's literally no room.
Yeah. So you would want to maximize. And it does look like you have a decent amount of hood louver there. But if you looked at like what Race Louvers does, it's pretty aggressive. And it's really apparently important that they not only stick up, but go well below the surface. You have to look at all his tests, and if you look at them all, you come to the conclusion that it's really more important that the louvers extend below the surface than above the surface. Like they might stick up above, let's say, half an inch, and they stick down below an inch. It's a lot.
I personally had to add, I felt I needed to add a gurney to the top because it's equidistant. So when I tilted the louvers that I have, it's whatever's at the top is also on the bottom. So I'll configure something out to extend the bottom, but the top,
it might be enough. Yeah. I'm just telling you what I saw on their site. I don't know the exact math on these things, but it's just, that's what it looks.
I didn't feel there was enough sticking out of the top to generate the type of vortex that's needed to create the pressure zone that I needed. So I added a gurney flap in front of it, and it seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, their data shows that too. Like you can go up to an inch high, but if you go over an inch, it doesn't really return much better. So up to an inch high on that front gurney is generally good.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an inch. I don't think I am 3/4 of an inch, and it's actually raked back at.
I'm sure
it's bent at a 45-degree angle, and then it's slid underneath. But at the pit, the roll of the hood, it's probably straight up and down, or almost straight up and down.
The rule of thumb on that is generally they should be perpendicular to airflow.
Okay.
Which is odd because oftentimes you see, hood louvers and fender louvers sort of laying back at an angle. But actually, ideally, they're supposed to be perpendicular to the flow. It's just...
Yeah, that's good information to know, especially when you're looking to go, okay, I'm going to go cut up this hood. And I know where my low pressure zones are, my high pressure zones are, and where I need to be and where the pieces need to be. Then you can go figure out what you need to buy, right? Through the shape of the hood and then where it's located. So much more educated than I did. At least I knew where my pressure zones were. But
that's good.
All the stuff on my car, there's a lot of information out there with people doing pressure tests with like somebody in the passenger seat with a probe stuck on a broom handle, and they're out there doing a grid on their hood every 6 inches. There was multiple tests like that, and they all said the same thing. So I thought I was in pretty safe company.
Yeah, I love that shit. Like the very first manometer I ever built, I was trying to design a ram air system, like a motorcycle has, and I just used colored water and a yardstick and stuck a tube inside the intake manifold, like so that I could monitor the pressure. And I for sure, like it was like 26 inches of water at idle or something. As I went down the road and went faster and faster, as I got up to 100 miles an hour, I watched 8 inches of water just drop out of this thing. And I was like, shit, it totally works. Ram air totally works. And then I did the math on what 8 inches of water is. And I was like, oh my God, that's like half of a PS. It's less than half of a PSI. I was like, I gained 1 horsepower at 100 miles an hour is all that ram air system is worth.
Yeah, but some people need that extra horsepower. I'll take an extra horsepower everywhere I can get it.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a Miata. It had 93.
Right. Oh yeah, so it has a much better percentage than it would on my car, and I'd still take it on my car. So
yeah. But I'm all in on those kinds of like stick a broom out the window kind of stuff. Like if you saw my when I was talking about measuring the angle of my wing, it's so hokey. It's just strips of cardboard on some all thread supported between my wing stands and like a clear piece of Lexan with like tape marks on it.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not like sexy with my stuff. Like I'll duct tape and baling wire shit together with the best.
Yeah, I mean, we have to rig stuff, to figure out what's going on. You can't. It would defeat the purpose to spend 6 months designing the tool that you were about to use for 6 minutes. When you can get the gist of everything, with 30 minutes of figuring out how you're going to do it, and then go run down the road for 10 minutes. So, yeah, we talked about this on the phone earlier this week, but you have this aversion to the flat splitter rules that are around basically everywhere. I think it's easier to say who doesn't have a flat splitter rule than it is to say who has one.
Yeah, the aversion is just based on someone's laziness to say that splitters should be flat. I mean, a splitter has high pressure on the top of the blade. It has low pressure on the bottom of the blade. It makes more downforce from the bottom side, from the low pressure and the suction, as it does from the high pressure. So it's essentially a wing. That's what a wing does. It has high pressure on the top, roughly 3 times more low pressure below, and it makes downforce through that differential. So when I see like people that say you have to have a flat splitter, I want to say, yeah, you should have a flat wing. That's how stupid that is.
Yeah, I agree. And so I've read like Hoon Development out of Australia had this thing about the pitch, how to angle your splitter blade and do all these other things. But I think there's a lot more than just raking your splitter a little bit that even a flat blade can benefit from. Now, not everybody is allowed splitter diffusers, but those are, from everything I read, they're just bolt-on downforce, like right away.
Yeah, that's essentially curving the rear of the splitter upwards. Right. It makes an airfoil out of the splitter in a limited amount of space, right? Not over the entire splitter blade, but in that little tunnel, it's essentially creating the shape
you
of
should
a wing.
Join the Professional Awesome Facebook page and see how many of those stinking diffusers people are putting on their blades.
Yeah, I'm in that group.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen me there, but I'm in. Yeah, for sure. It's a great group, actually. There's a lot of sources.
There was somebody who was like,
yeah,
I don't know how much money they spent on production ones. They were printing their own, and they were trying to shove as many possible in the wheel well, then in between the frame rails, and just they were playing Tetris with these things to try to see how many they could fit. I was like, wow.
I think I saw that one. I do something that's even worse than that. I make the entire splitter into a diffuser. I essentially curve the rear of the splitter blade upwards such that there is a splitter diffuser that goes the full width of the car. From the outside of the tire to the outside of the tire, it's a splitter diffuser.
Okay. And how do you do this? Because we've talked about it. I think we talked about this per se. But.
Yeah, we did a little bit. But rather than just using a flat piece of plywood, take two pieces of plywood and glue them together in a curve. So Grid Life gives you a variance. They say a flat splitter, they give you 5 degrees. SCCA gives you 3 degrees. Actually, the new SCCA time trial rules are open on curved splitters. So we can add SCCA time trials to the list of people who've said that curved splitters are now
They found the light.
But, some people, they found the light. And last year at Grid Life was at Watkins Glen, which is 25 miles away from me. So I went up there and kind of walked the pits, and I wasn't impressed so much with the Grid Life cars. There's a lot of great builds out there, but there was a couple of like professional time attack cars there, stuff that they race at like Tsukuba or whatever, right? And all of these cars, none of these cars, let's just say, had a flat splitter. None of these cars had a splitter diffuser. All of these cars, the entire front end was a splitter diffuser. Like their splitter diffuser went end to end. I mean, side to side, right? Like the whole thing raked up, and you're thinking, wow, they're just going to diffuse air right into the face of the tire. Yep. They're going to just diffuse air right into the center of the car. Yep. It was pretty amazing. They also have to extract that air through lots of different means, but those little splitter diffusers, that's last year. This year, let's curve all the diffusers.
all the blades get curved.
All the places curved. So I just did an experiment in the wind tunnel and took a 5 degrees diffuser. Like it's kind of hard to see a 5-degree angle. It's not even that much, right? So I made a flat splitter, and it made 130 pounds of downforce. And then I made a 5-degree curved splitter, and it made 195 pounds of downforce. So 150% more downforce just by curving the rear upwards. And that's because it's just creating venturi. So it's accelerating air in front of it. That's what a diffuser does. The downforce isn't made in the diffuser, it's made in front of the diffuser. So the lowest point of that, which is your splitter, the kind of the front of your splitter lip, it now becomes the lowest point, accelerates the air underneath there. The air follows up towards the trailing edge of that splitter, which now diffuses air, and you get this massive downforce. Yeah, so that's, I think, where people should go with this thing. And the thing is, you could just go to Home Depot and get a warped piece of wood.
And it would be the same.
It's easy also. It's the same thing. It's like, it's cheaper to buy the warped piece of wood, So anybody who says, oh, we don't want to have an aerodynamics war because we have to have flat splitters, it's like, it's no more work, dude. Just go to the junk pile and pick up a curved one.
Something bowed in the middle, rip it down the middle, pick your side.
It's no big deal. Yeah. So that's why I go off on the flat splitter thing. I just think it's like utter laziness out of people who wrote the rules whenever they wrote them. And then whoever else just continued to copy and paste. Like I was calling myself a citizen developer, a citizen aerodynamicist. I'm guilty of this same kind of shit. So let me not talk too badly about other people for copying and pasting. Guilty as charged over here. I definitely stand on the shoulders of giants of everyone else who's done this stuff. But I've recently come around to, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I don't think anyone else should either. Let's change the rules. Like, who knows? Maybe SCCA Time Trials read one of my articles and we're like, yeah, why are we doing that? But they did abolish it this year. So they have no verbiage around you need a flat splitter.
So you're talking about laminating multiple pieces of wood. Let's get a little bit into what kind of wood you're using and what you think the minimum thickness should be for your...
Oh, yeah. Depends on the wood, but like you don't want to use big box hardwood, like softwood rather, from like Lowe's or Home Depot. That stuff is just going to delaminate. You could use some of the better birch plywoods as long as it's waterproof glue. If it's not waterproof glue, it's going to just eventually delaminate. You've seen seen that. Lots of them don't last long enough before they do, but the best wood is boat building plywood. I was building boats before I got into cars. and its stuff it has like a British specification, so it has a BS number, BS 6566, BS 1088. Those are like specifications for the wood. I believe it's like X-rayed for voids. It's definitely boil tested. It's 32 pounds per cubic foot, so it's generally lighter than most of the other hardwoods. And you could put 2 6mm pieces of that 1/4 inch and make a 1/2 inch splitter out of it. And it's going to be stiffer. It's like a skateboard deck. When you laminate it into a curve, it's stiffer, right? When you concave it. So, yeah, it becomes incredibly rigid. 1/2 inch is plenty for something like that. And it's also way light, super stiff, and it'll never come apart. Now, how is to laminate them with the curve? There's 2 ways I've done it. You can either just like put a 2x4 under each end and just put some weights in the middle, or just like screw it down to your workbench. But you basically just want to lift the back edge or lift both edges, and then just clamp it. If you put the clamping center in the middle, it sort of evenly distributes that glue out, right? You're pushing down in the middle. Both ends are supported, and you'll get a pretty good glue up. A buddy of mine, Daniel, he parked his car on it, so he couldn't bend it. It was too hard to park, so he actually just put down 2 pieces of plywood with glue in it, and then he had like basically 2 2x4s holding him up. So, and then just ran his car over that, and that pushed down the center of the plywood and made it curved.
Okay. Yeah, I have interesting ideas about jigs and repeatable pieces and stuff like that. So,
okay, so I've done it another way too. I should show you the jig, the thing. Another way I did it, but it's too complicated to talk about. But I do have another way of doing it too, to score it, bend it, and then throw in these little strakes that hold up.
Send me a picture of it, and I'll use it in one of the promos or something for the podcast.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I had something on the tip of my brain. I didn't name that type of wood. So it's called, I use a brand called Meranti, Meranti.
Okay.
Meranti BS6566 is the cheapest of those boat building plywoods. The BS 1088 is, a little more appearance grade. And then there's other like brands like Okume and Lloyd's of London and stuff. But if you can find the Meranti Hydrotech or Meranti Aquatech, those are the 6566 and 1088. At a like better, you can sometimes order it from a better lumber store, or if there's any kind of like boat building stores or specialty hardwood stores, they can get that stuff for you. I actually go up to Buffalo to get it. They bring it over from Canada.
Yeah, Lowe's is not going to have this. Home Depot's probably not going to have this.
Hell no way. Now, I don't think you can even find a waterproof glued plywood there. Like even the stuff that they have that's birch, I don't think that's waterproof.
I seal the snot out of mine pretty well, and I don't seem to have a problem. But
okay, that's good. I mean, if you could find 1/4 inch birch, then you could do the same thing. You could put 2 pieces together, curve it, and have yourself a 1/2 inch splitter that's much stiffer than you'd imagine.
And then, so I would be remiss if I didn't do this or ask this question, but which side of the splitter blade are you radiusing?
No, the underside.
Okay.
So, and I would put the largest radius as possible. If the splitter rules, like the NASA STTT splitter rules say you can have a splitter up to 3/4 of an inch thick, I would use all of it. There is no point in running a 1/4 inch splitter or an 1/8 inch aluminum splitter or carbon fiber. That just creates flow separations as air hits it at any angle. By having a large radius on the front, the airflow stays attached at many angles. When the car is pitching forward and bouncing up and down and oscillating, the air stays attached. So if you look at any wing on any car or any airplane, it's very blunt in the front, right? Super rounded and blunt in the front and very sharp at the rear, right? That's what your splitter should look like. And how many times have I seen people like round the top of their splitter blade down, which is so wrong, because it's the underside that you need the air to attach to. The top side doesn't matter. So you really get yourself a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, or in your Honda Challenge rules, I didn't even see a limit on that. I'd probably use a 1 inch thick splitter in the front, not the whole distance, but like I would thicken up that lip and put a huge radius on it. It's going to help air attachment, flow attachment, and thereby, create more downforce, or actually lose less downforce. And then the rear of your splitter blade, the trailing edge, should angle upwards. So even if you were stuck with, let's say, flat and horizontal splitter rules, okay, you're stuck into this box of shitty splitters, you can round the heck out of the front, and you can chamfer the rear at 12 degrees and effectively make a curve.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The air is coming in, attaching to that curved surface in the front, flowing underneath the underside, exiting, going upwards at the rear, and you have created more downforce. You accelerated more air going out of that.
I may edit this out just so the folks can't. Just kidding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, 12-degree angle is like, it's like roughly like 1 in 5. So if it's a 1-inch splitter, come back 5 inches. If a half-inch splitter, come back 2.5 inches. But chamfer that back edge for sure. Chamfer that back edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even on a flat splitter, no one is going to check that your splitter is not perfectly flat and horizontal. If you have 3 degrees angle, you can work with that.
Yep.
You can kick some air, right? It's like the same thing when the Formula One cars were flat and they weren't allowed any angle. They still raked the chassis and they got downforce by raking the car, right? So same thing with the splitter, rake it, even if it's flat.
Yeah. I mean, I currently rake my splitter, the whole thing. Flat to the ground, I think it's only like 1.5 degrees. So, but I think that's plenty.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'd probably do a little bit more, and only because I would thicken the lip and round the heck out of it, and then you could run a little bit more. But
yeah, I have a lot of packaging problems up front, and I'm refitting. I'm using an FK8, the newer one of the first turbo remake of the Civic Type R. I'm using that mount from Racebred, and it works. It works for what I want, but I had to make custom rear mounts, and they're so tight. I mean, to get my 1.5 degrees, I had to mount everything, and the rear mounts mount to the subframe, and I bolted it all together, tightened everything, and then I take a hammer and smash it into the subframe. So hold it as tight to the subframe as possible. That's how intricate I was with trying to get rake into my splitter blade. But
I'm glad. Yeah, good thing you did that. Good thing. So I'm it's interesting that you asked me and AJ that same question about which side of the splitter to round. I guess there's a lot of people that round the top of the splitter blade.
There are companies that say, send me, some of them are new. They're not doing it, but there are companies that have been out for years that are saying, hey, send me your splitter template and we will cut this beautiful piece for you to finish however you want. And it's radiused on both sides. And
that's okay if it's radiused a little bit on both sides. If let's just say it's 1 inch, okay? I would put a 1/8 inch radius on the top side, and I put 7/8 on the bottom. It's okay to break that edge and keep splinters from happening or whatever. I'd put a small radius on the top edge.
Yeah, but what they're doing is if it's a 1 inch, they're doing an 8 on the top and an 1/8 on the bottom and telling you, here you go.
Okay, that's nothing. That's not going to do anything for flow attachment. So I took this course with Kyle Forster, and I think in there he says the general rule of thumb is 100 millimeter radius, which is very hard to achieve, is ideal. So that's fucking 4 inches. We're not going to get that, right? So, yeah, but he's talking about things like where a diffuser kicks on the flat bottom or other things. Anyway, you want as much radius as you can. An 1/8 of an inch is going to do anything for flow attachment. That's going to help the durability a tiny bit, and maybe avoid a splinter. But have you seen those? I use a router bit that is elliptical. It's not like a half round kind of thing. It takes more out of it sort of gradually. What do they call it? I don't know. But it's a router bit that's elliptical, not like a half pipe, right? And it takes a lot more meat out of the rear of it. So on a 1 inch piece of thickness, again, instead of having 1 inch back, it's more like 2 inches back that it's rounding. So, and that's the way to do it. You look at wings and look how they're rounded and copy that.
Yeah. I'll be.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to all your listeners.
I'm about to go take my end plates off so I get a better side view. So then I can just go, this is what I need to,
Yeah. You can look at a lot of that stuff on Airfoil Tools, which is a great website. And you can actually search tons and tons of different wings. And they all have a very blunt front and a very sharp rear, just like a splitter should be. Okay?
Yeah. So just a little more on the front end, mostly on the do-it-yourself side. How stiff should these splitter blades be? Because I see people standing on them, and I'm like, well, that's not really going to destroy itself in an off excursion. You're more likely to bend stuff when you do that, when they're that strong.
I mean, I would. Yeah, you have to worry about breaking things. If your splitter doesn't come apart, you're probably going to break some frame mount or something else where it's mounted. I don't know. It's a good question. I will say, though, that the suction peak is not at the splitter tip usually, unless you have a flat splitter and you're raking it. But on a properly curved splitter, if you look at the pressure plots, the suction peak is, a third of the way back from the tip of the splitter. Right. So that's where most of the work is happening. Certainly, if you can stand on your splitter, that's a good measure of being stiff enough. It can probably be a little less stiff than that. You just don't want it to vibrate and flex at speed or have any, oscillations or like anything like that. I'd rather overbuild it personally. It's an area that gets a lot of abuse. You really don't want it to deflect at speed. I don't really worry about weight down low. I mean, it is at the polar end of the car, and you don't like that, but I'd tend to overbuild it. That's in that area. So
I'll tell you that I've been off a couple times in the car. In that race that you saw, I took a slight detour through the grass. The blade was fine, and it's just a 3/8 birch blade that I have. But I built in weakness to the mounts themselves. So they'll bend and flex, and I'll bend them back and eventually have to replace them. But I had to build in something to sacrifice. And I think some people are like, I'm building it out of 1/4 inch aluminum, and then I'm putting a full inch thick piece of plywood on there, and it's never going anywhere. And I think that's a dangerous combination. So.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience on that. I've certainly had splitters. I jammed one whale underneath my car and had to take everything off. Like, I don't know enough to have a lot of insight on that one. I'm still learning. And
how about the air dam to splitter ratio? More air dam, less air dam. What are you making your air dams out of? I saw somebody with they had their carbon fiber blade made, and they were drawing their lines and lining up to put their garden edging on. I'm not against garden edging. I'm not against it. I just thought it was a little crazy to have a carbon fiber blade and then going to garden.
That's pretty funny. I mean, I just use the race. Yeah, I use the race plastics from Pegasus or whoever. You just buy a roll.
Yeah, I bought mine from Speedway. I think it was like $35 for a really long roll of this stuff that shucks I probably could get.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I do the same thing. I think that the only comment I have there is on the air dam is, again, you see a lot of really sharp openings. You'll basically see someone cut a hole in the air dam for the radiator and then do nothing to radius it. And so as soon as you're in yaw or the air is coming in an angle or anywhere but straight, it's going to separate on that edge, tumble and cause drag and other problems. And I think that, there's so much that you can pay attention to on the front of the car. I mean, air dams are sometimes just the garden edging. It's just covering up between the bottom plastic and the splitter. But on Miatas, it's usually a shit ton more.
Yeah, you
that.
guys, you guys have huge pieces.
Yeah.
You go up like all the way up the bumpers usually.
Yeah, because we have these crazy underbite splitters underbite kind of bumpers that shove air underneath the car. We have to cover all that up. Like your car has a proper shape to it, and all you have to do is cover the gap where that splitter goes up and down. You know, that was one of the interesting things of watching AJ's YouTube videos is like sometimes he'll reveal some nugget like they ran the garden edging, around next to the splitter, and then one time they didn't. And when they didn't, it was better. I mean, it was still only like a very small gap, like a half-inch gap or something. But they just left it off just to see what would happen, and it was oddly better.
That's wild.
I know, like the dimples on golf balls. Why?
It doesn't make any sense.
So why did that work? Yeah, I mean, who knows why that little gap? And if it was maybe a quarter inch bigger, maybe it would have been terrible. But whatever it was not.
Yeah, and here I am trying to seal it like airtight, and
Yeah, watch that one. He's got so much good content, and like we were talking about this before we got on. Like, there's a lot of people that create videos. In fact, I wanted to. There's one that's called. There's these Australian guys, or maybe I hope they're Australians, not New Zealand. I don't remember. I don't want to. Anyway, it's called something like WTF Aero. And it's a terrible name for probably one of the best videos in aerodynamics. Like, it's a 2-part video, WTF Aero such and such, and you're like, they really go stem to stern on the car and tell you what works and what doesn't, and it's like the distilled knowledge of those people is fantastic. Let me look it up while I'm here, just so I can give you that exact link. But I'll never make videos myself. I mean, after watching like how YouTube does its algorithms and whatever, I'll never, it's not worth it for me to try and come up with, like catchy titles and phrases and this and that, because I'm a writer, and that's kind of like what I do and what I'm good at. And I would make very average or below average videos. And so it's just not worth it to me to like, throw my hat into that one. Yeah, here it is. WTF Aero, the basics explained and myths revealed, part 1, the front end, and by Motive Video. Sorry, I don't like the title, but it's a fantastic. And the part 2 is not quite as good as part 1, but man, it's good.
Yeah. I personally, I'll take as much content as I can get, whether it's in video or written form. And I really appreciate your website because you've got testing section, do-it-yourself section, articles, wing reviews. You have your Veloster N stuff that you're doing, and then you have your blog posts. So, you have a ton of information on there. And I had to go down a rabbit hole, and I just sat on your website and went and dug and dug and dug. So,
well, I'm glad you did. I guess I hope people understand that I'm not a professional. I think that, they do as soon as I start breaking out fuck bombs and stuff. But I think what I'm doing that is different than other people in this business is everyone plays their cards super close to their chest, right? Like, nobody reveals aerodynamic secrets. And that's my job. So I feel like I'm this like rookie. I'm like the kid who says the emperor has no clothes. I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes. I'm going to throw out some shit. I sometimes don't know what the hell I'm talking about and make mistakes. But I'm going to do stuff, and I'm going to give you the data. And if I'm wrong, you have the data. You can unfuck whatever I did. Right? So, that's my purpose here.
When we talked earlier,
play with an open hand.
You said your new life's goal. Talk about that, because I think it's important. You're literally the person that's telling people how the magic trick is done, but you're trying to embody it forever, but in a certain realm. So you want to talk about what would you call it? Your capstone?
Yeah. Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
So Rosetta Stone. Yeah, I look at a lot, some CFD stuff, and while CFD is sort of the mode of the moment, and it's great and colorful and makes people feel happy.
I love looking at it.
Yeah, it's great. Pressure plots of cows and lobsters and Jeeps and cars. But unless you, first of all, I want coefficient of lift and coefficient of drag, and those colors are meaningless to me. But unless you then take that CFD model and correlate it with the wind tunnel, you don't know how good it is. Right. You either have to, or take it to a track and correlate it with track. You've seen like Formula One cars or even some MotoGP bikes with these aerodynamic rakes on them. There's all these, pressure pots on a grid, and what they're doing is just trying to validate their CFD model, right? So CFD is great, allows rapid stuff that you couldn't, much faster and do stuff. But to get a good beginning CFD, you really have to validate it to a wind tunnel and to real world testing. So Johnny, 9 Lives, Moreland Engineering did the CFD for the 9 Lives medium Aero kit, right? Which is sort of the ubiquitous track Aero that you see on a lot of cars, a lot of Miatas. And so I want to replicate exactly that same car in the wind tunnel. And I want to throw some other things at it that are in other people's catalogs and stuff, and get to a point where we can say, feed that back into that CFD model and say, okay, so we have the CFD. And for example, I think the drag is too high. Like when I looked at those numbers that Johnny has out there, it's like 0.65 drag or something and 0.72 downforce. The downforce seems fine, but the drag seems, like 50% too high. So I'd love to be able to like feed back into that CFD model and then also figure out some of the things that you can't do very well in the wind tunnel. I use the A2 wind tunnel. I've used it once. And it doesn't have a rolling floor. So that's a problem with underbody aero, ground effect, like the boundary layer that's sort of growing and becoming a problem with basically anything around the underbody and tires. You can't really get good accuracy on that. But you can get good accuracy on things like wings and opening your windows and mirrors and stuff. So I'd love to be able to correlate the wind tunnel stuff to what CFD is better at, such as the underside. So that's 2 of the languages in where this says Rosetta Stone, right? We have our CFD and we're wind tunnel. And the third one is road testing, which is how I started, which is, putting strain gauges on the car, hiring somebody to, do all the math and figure out the drag and lift of all these different combinations, using coast down and steady state testing with a pitot tube and rolling resistance and stuff. So that's the third one. So get the same car in all 3 environments, put all the sensors on it, come up with this translation, and have this sort of like recipe for somebody who's like, okay, I've got the 9 Lives racing kit. I went to the wind tunnel and I did this. And we're going to say, oh, we know from the Rosetta Stone of these things that you can do this and that. Or they did the CFD and we go like, yeah, that's probably right. But based on our wind tunnel testing, we would correct it so it's like this, right? It's just some kind of, I feel maybe Rosetta Stone is not a great word for it. I don't know what to call it, but I feel like that my life's work as far as in the Miata sphere has something to do with that. And I don't see any manufacturers doing it. Johnny, of course, did do the CFD, but I don't see anybody, correlating with that with wind tunnel and real world testing. And that's the shit that keeps me up at night. That's my mission, right? Like, why not me, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously getting super excited about this. It's happening June 20th. I'm going down there to the wind tunnel. But, this is sort of a lifelong pursuit. But I think this year I'll have some very good data that I didn't have before and then just going forward, like more of the same. Super exciting times.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing. When you get deeper down this Rosetta Stone, Miata is the answer, and this is what we're validating. Maybe you come back and share. I'm sure you're going to write about it.
Yeah.
But the whole experience, right? So getting it all together, what you found, how you're finding it, that kind of thing. I think that would be a good educational experience. Nobody's going to do that for my stupid Civic. Okay. I get that. Right. But it is the right process. I can't just CFD my car and go, this is what I'm going to do. Right. It has to be replicatable in another discipline, essentially.
Yeah. Well, you could scan your car, pay someone thousands of dollars to correct that model for CFD, run a bunch of CFD runs and try different things and still have possibly worthless data. Then you go to the wind tunnel and spend $700 an hour on a non-rolling road wind tunnel because the rolling road ones are like 4 times more expensive. Like there's one right next door, but you either have to like be somebody or know somebody, and I'm neither of those, so I can't get in there.
I'll try to get you
there. And the one in Canada, just thanks, dude. The one in Canada, which is not that far from me, they were just like, no. Yeah, I was like, can I get in there and test my race car? They're like, no.
Don't worry.
So I don't think that's going to
happen. It's an empty threat to get you somewhere.
I knew that.
But I think it's important that even at our grassroots level that we do some sort of true scientific method type work with our vehicles. Because if not, how serious are we really taking it, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. You know, I really feel like every time someone says butt dyno, I want to put my foot in it. Like, we need data.
Yeah.
And while I'm not a scientist, but I come from scientists. But you know what? I wish I could be more scientific. I'm doing the best I can. You know, this is a one-man show here. Like it's all afforded by me. It's all designed by me. It's all bullshit by me. And like, I'm doing the best I can from that scientific angle. I wish I had more controls, but you know, this is the data we got.
I mean, I think you're doing a really good job, personally. I think you even.
Oh, well, appreciate that.
I think you have bring me a coffee or something? What's buy me a coffee.
Yeah, buy me a coffee.
So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love to plug that. Like, yeah, if you like any of my articles and stuff, there's a little thing that says buy me a coffee, and it's $5, and I think I get like $4.65 of that. But every time I get one of those, I really feel like they usually put a note on there and say, hey, thanks. And I'm like, man, I really appreciate that more than getting paid for something. Like, someone spent the time to just say, click a button, bought me a coffee, wrote me a few words of encouragement. And that kind of keeps me going on this kind of solo project of mine. And I would just want to say thanks to all those people who did that.
Yeah. You're doing the hard work and sharing it essentially freely. So if you like what he's doing, hit that buy me a coffee link. So.
Yeah. And drop a couple words with it. Sometimes they just buy me the coffee, but I would love to know what people are working on, man. Like, I'm in this to know what you guys are doing. I love your car, by the way. Con, it's cool. Like, I'm a Civic dude, you know. My wife had that Civic, not that she had the base model, but like, we've always had Civics. So
yeah, they make fun cars. So yeah. All right, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I don't know if you have anything left you want to talk about.
No, man. We went over. So I just want to apologize for going too long, but thanks for having me. Yeah. And, have me back after we'll read about this Rosetta Stone thing. And then, in June, after I get back from June, I'm going to the wind tunnel with Johnny and AJ. So that should be pretty exciting. Trying to keep those guys from fighting. I might even just instigate something, see if I can get those guys.
Invite me, and I'll bring my gimbal set up, and I'll just video record it, and we can put it on behind a paywall. You know,
I'd love to have a video version. If you're free on the 20th, let me know. I told AJ he could video, but I actually honestly need him for other things, like telling me what to do. So, we'll see. You'll see about that, and we'll come back and tell you about all these exciting things. In the meantime, I am going to send you some pictures and try and help you with that front end. I would love to see, and the wing angle and the stuff. So we'll get on that.
It's 9:00 at night, which is usually my bedtime, and all I want to do is go and lift my wing just so I don't have to do it later.
Me too, dude. I'm in bed at 9 every night. So more things like we got to have to get together sometime and just spend 4 hours talking about.
Yeah, right.
So
who knew?
I know. Yeah.
All right, man.
Cool, dude.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.